Okay, so for this one, I'm going to use a milk that's fresh from the cow. This is a grade A whole raw milk. Okay, let's see what this does. So this is going to have a higher fat. I don't know. I've not tried this one before. First I have to get it open. So my mom grew up on a dairy farm. So she used to drink this stuff all the time. Okay. Here's a different coloring. I think this is the one that I probably got at the dollar store. And here's some other ones that McCormick has. They have just a variety. Oops! They have a variety of colors. I thought this one was fun. You get more of these bright neon, kind of a aqua type blue. Anyway, let's go ahead. I'm going to start with this one here. How about blue and green? Let's see what that does. Okay, let's go start dropping. Oh wow, it just seems to even right away sit differently in the milk mixture. It might be my imagination, I'm not sure. Let's just see. So we've got our ink in there. Let's pull out our soap and our toothpick. Okay. Oh, look at that. So I'm going to wipe off my toothpick in between just in case that makes a difference. Oh, so I think maybe with this higher fat content, I don't know, maybe we're seeing a bigger reaction. Oh, then it seems to kind of stop. You have to have a big enough pool of the... So I'm just going to then try this, making little designs in it. Oh, I like that. Can you see that right there? How it kind of has that feathered look that you see like in books. Alright, let's get my paper going. Okay, here's my paper. There's that one. So I'm mostly seeing the blue on that one. It's swirling up a little bit. I'm going to try it this direction. So it's not pooling in big it's like it's mixing more of a muted. Maybe it's the coloring, maybe it's the food coloring itself. I don't really know, but I'm trying it, just seeing what happens. It seems to be moving differently though. So my colors are really mixing up now. So I could keep going and just make a paper that's like that. It's really quite pretty. I wouldn't mind that at all. But for this, I'm going to stop there and then dry this out and just kind of see. Okay. Here I am with the completed papers. Now I have to be honest with this one. I really felt as they were laid out that there was a lot, I felt like the liquid was pooling and it would have been better if it just sat and air dried by itself. I didn't have the time or the patience or the space for that. So I did do blotting on it. So it did pull up some of the color. And then I did air dry it with my tool. But it still really turned out nice. Let me give you some little samples here of how it turned out. So it just creates a nice swirling effect of marbling. This is an interesting thing that I found out with this paper that I didn't see in the other ones. So there's a little bit of a glossing that's occurring in some areas, particularly the areas where it pooled up a little bit more. Now I'm not sure if that was an effect from the whole milk or if that was an effect from a raw milk that wasn't pasteurized. You know, it's not homogenized. So anyway, just a little thing I would pass along. And here's these other ones. This is a lovely, just muted feel. I don't know if that's picking up at all. I will love using these pages. So I thought in the beginning that I'd like the ones more that had the more activity. But you know what? I love these ones just as much. I can really see a lot of things that can be done with it. So let's move on to the next experiment. Okay, now I have no idea how this one's going to turn out, but I thought I wanted to give it a try and just see what happened. Let me show you. This just has water, and then it has this in. I just got it at the dollar store. It's Coffee Mate. I put like a tablespoon in this water, and the water is maybe a cup. I don't know. It's just filling the bottom of this container. Let's just give it a try and see what happens. So let me pull out the neon colors. Let's see if they're any different. Oh, boy, this brings back memories, these little shape bottles. All right, so there's some blue. It looks the same. What do you mean neon? Okay, there's blue. Ooh, pink. Let's use the pink with it. 1, 2. Okay, maybe I'm putting too much ink in there. I don't know. Let's try it out though and see. So here is my soap, and let's give it a try. Oh, it does the same thing. Quite nicely. Huh. You know, and so for this container, only being $1, look at how much you can use. So let's try now actually getting the paper. Not a lot went on the paper, it seemed. Maybe the milk helps it pick up more. Well, that's a nice one. I would do that. Swirling a little bit more, a little faster, I would say. It's not staying as distinct, and it's not picking up as much color on the paper. There is color on the paper, but not as much. That one's just basically blank. Okay, well, I'm just going to stop there. That's how that worked out. Now we know you get a little bit, but you don't get a lot. I wonder if it's a fat content. I don't know. Be interesting to research it. Okay, so this really dried much faster than the other one. It has a better drying to it. So this is how this turned out. So it's got nice color swirls. It just doesn't have as much saturation of color. So well, look at that one though. That was the first one. This one I did before. Interesting. So compared to that one, see how the color just kind of moved around? And the other one, this one doesn't. As a matter of fact, the last one, you can't even tell it has color on it other than the little speckles that are there. I don't even know what side I really dyed on. Okay, so let's go back to this. It does create a nice swirl still. You still have coloring. It does really, the color dissipates as you go along. So if you wanted to use this technique, you could still do that. You just have to keep on refreshing it and adding more of the liquid, and you wouldn't get as many pages out of it. That's okay. That still works. You know, as I was pulling out my paper to start the next one, I realized how this had turned basically blue. Just the whole container. And so I thought I would try dipping it in and seeing what happened. And this is what happened. I got a nice bluish, purplish paper. You can see the difference right there. It makes for a nice paper, so really it's not a loss. Even though my other samples, let me see right here. Even though the last one I did, it didn't really pick up, see? This is the one that I did. It didn't pick up the color, but once the color just kind of sat in the container and was able to move around, it actually did pick up color. So, yeah, interesting, huh? I'd say so. Okay, back to our next project. So at the dollar store, they also had a liquid creamer. So I thought, well, let's just try a liquid creamer and just see what happens with that. This is nice and thick. I'm going to use the neon ones again. Seems to have a nice heaviness to it and holding in the area. All right, let's see what happens. Boy, it's already moving around. Look how it's moving around. I don't know if it's because I moved the container. There. There. Oh, this is moving nicely. Get some more. Oops. Probably shouldn't double dip because then it brings my coloring into the... So why is that the first ones it reacts and the second ones it doesn't really react? I don't get that. I'm sure there's some science there, but I don't get it. Alright, so let's see what happens. Those are pretty bold. My paper barely fits. So it gets bold colors, and look how it's still kind of moving on the paper. You see that? It's still having that reaction. I'm getting the ink on my paper. Alright, so it's moving a lot in there. So this is definitely a bolder color. It's holding on to the color much more, it seems. Seems to me. Oh, that swirl. So I missed that little corner, so I'm going to just dunk it right in. This actually is working out quite well. What's nice about this, it's only $1. It's a small container. I'm using just a little bit of it, just enough to cover the bottom. I wonder what it'd be like if I just added some water with it also to see. So there's some papers here. I'm going to go ahead and dry them, and we'll get another look. This is another one that I think would be really great if you gave it time to just dry on its own. It's got these wonderful rich colors. This one had some really dark pockets on it that I blotted, and it just took away the deep rich colors. Like on this one right here. Let me pull it into shot a little bit more. See these deep rich colors? If that was just allowed to dry on its own instead of with an air, you know, dryer, pocket, whatever, your drying tool, it would be much better. So you can see how this is pooling, and the colors really have remained rich and dark. You know, compare it with like this. What a difference, huh? So if you were looking for something, you know, just vibrant, I would say maybe go with the coffee creamer. There's another thing I wanted to try, and I thought this would be a great place to try it. So I got this at the dollar store as well. This is some pink salt. And a lot of watercolor people, they'll use salt on their watercolor paintings to create a different effect. So I thought it would be fun to try on this. Let me just pour out a little in my hands. And I'll just kind of sprinkle some on and see if it impacts how the paint moves. It's not paint. So in watercolor, you end up getting these burst looks. This might do absolutely nothing, but I thought I would just try and just kind of see what happens. Who knows? So I'm going to continue drying the rest of them. Okay, I have dried these, but this is one that does really need to have time to just dry. So I'm going to show you the ones that are in the partial dried state. This turned out great. Now I can see it is picking up. This does have a sheen to it. It does have a gloss to it. Probably the most out of all of them. And it does definitely create a gloss, and it wants to pool together, and I think I'll get the best impact if I just let it dry. But you can see how nice it looks. This would be a great book if you were going to do one about like with the universe, or you know, the solar system, or you know, that kind of a feel to the book. It just feels like that. Now I have concluded this is the one I put the salt on it. No difference. You don't get that wonderful flowering effect. And I know there's probably some watercolor person out there, and you can maybe even tell me why. Okay, if you're watching, tell me why. And then here's this one right here. Okay, I have some other things I want to try, so I'm going to clear this up and we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, since we're trying out all these things with the milk, I thought it was only a natural to just see what happens with just plain old water in soap. Like, what will that do? So what we're going to do now is try it out and see. Here is just plain blue. Boy, it sinks to the bottom. That's what it does. That's why you need probably the fat in it. Let's try it just with this. So it is getting a little bit, I think only as my paper is sinking to the bottom. See? Oh, interesting. Okay, now we know. At least that's my theory. Okay, let's move on to something else I want to try. Get rid of this. By the way, look at the difference between that. This is the one I just did. This is the one that was done with the creamer. Okay, to be fair, I did use a different ink too, so we'll have to just see what that does. All right, I'm going to go back to the lactose-free milk. Cover my surface. And I thought, what would it do if you had a soap as a resist on the paper? So I'm going to try just writing on the paper and just seeing what it does. I'm going to use, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to do two so we can compare the inks. So this one is the dollar store ink. And I'm only going to use one color this time just to see what happens with that. By using one color, you don't get the muddiness. Oh, look at the movement of that. But you're going to get the swirling effect of the paper. So this one also has on the... No difference. That one also has on the soap that I did in the grid shape. Don't even notice at all, so that makes no difference at all. Okay, so let's do some papers and just kind of see how this works out with the swirling of just one. So I've got lines going that way. I'm just going to see what happens if I... It's not making the lines that time. It's just moving the paper. So I think this would work if you were doing just a... if you wanted... Oh, wait a minute. Look at that. Do you see what's happening right there? The water is pooling away from the soap. Maybe it's going to make a difference after all. Interesting. So I'm going to add a color on the top and just see what happens now that that's all muddied around. Just see if... Okay. No, it only picked up the green. It didn't even pick up the blue. Oh, that one picked up the blue. Okay, so it adds a little bit more life to the papers, not the paper, to the length of the use of the liquid. So, my initial conclusion was incorrect with the resist from the soap. It is definitely resisting and pulling away from the sides. Let me give you a closer look. You see that? You see the grid that I painted? Interesting. Okay, let's let these dry. Get them dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and see then the intensity of the colors now, going back and using this color. Alright, these are mostly dry. I'm going to go ahead and give you a shot of them. So there's that. The blue. Just nice swirly colors. Now I should say too that I noticed, here's the green, using the heat gun, if you have a big pool of fluid, of the milk right there, and you get the heat gun on it, if you get the heat too close, if you get too much heat there, it starts to crack a little bit. Makes sense, I guess. Here's this one. It's still in the process of drying. Here's another one still in the process of drying. And this is the one that I used the soap on. And you can see the markings that I did on the soap. Okay, so nice options and things to try. So let's move on to one more thing I want to try. Okay, for this one I'm going to use the lactose-free milk again. Use the rest of it, I guess. And what I'm going to use, I'm going to try using the other ink to see if there's any different movement of the inks itself. So let's try pink. You can see that's nicely sitting on the surface there. Each of them nicely moved. Look at that one going. Okay. So, you know, with the one color, you're not going to see all the rest of it. So I'm going to put green with it. hopefully there's still the resistance on the, nope. There's something about adding it. Something changes really quick all around. So that's that one. Nice and bright. So I don't think it's the ink itself. I really think it just has to do with what you're using. Look how fast that mixed up. Boom. What you're using in here that makes the difference in how bright it's going to turn out. That's my thought. That's my thought, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dry this. So I want to show you this one in particular. I was getting impatient with it drying, and so I took my towel right there and blotted it, and it really removes the impact and the effect of the ink right there. So it's much better if you were to let it dry naturally, and then you get the coloring in the ink. I'll show you right here. This is what this one looked like. It had a beautiful puddle right there, and I touched it, and what it does, it just pulls up that whole area. So keep that in mind as you're creating your pieces. These turned out just lovely though. They're very nice and usable. They would make wonderful tags. Oh gosh, I wonder what book pages would look like. This is the raw milk, so it's going to be heavier. So here's some book paper. It's just a contemporary book that I got at the dollar store. Oops, I kind of need the coloring in there. Gonna move this out of the way. And let's go ahead and ink it. Not ink it, but soap it up. So it gets all the colors moving. Oh, I'm telling you, this soap that I've got here smells so good. So let's see what it looks like. Oh, it does a wonderful swirl on it. Now this is a really porous paper, so I can see right away it's just really absorbing into it. So we'll see what it looks like once it dries. I have no idea. So this is still drying, but let me show you. Even as it's drying, I feel like because the paper's so porous that the ink even spreads within it, and there's not as much distinction. You can't see that swirling or anything going on. So I'm going to try, this is an old dictionary page. I'm going to try this. This is an old dictionary page, and it's a slicker piece of paper, so it's not as porous. So I'm going to try this and just see what happens. Here's two little pieces. Let me see if I can get some differing colors in here that'll catch. It doesn't have to be the swirl, so maybe I'll just even leave fuller blobs in there. We'll see. Okay, it's moving around a little bit. So let's just see how the paper picks it up. See, it picks it up much better. So if you have a slicker paper, you're going to get a better response on your paper than if you have a more porous paper. That's what I believe we see happening. Okay, back to drying. Okay, here are these mostly dry. And you know what? I think that even though these don't have that swirling impact as much in them, I think they're a great piece of paper to use within your design work. They just have an intrigue about them. And this is what these ended up being like. So it didn't hold on to that swirl quite as much as I would have thought. The colors are more intense, so the color does stay on the surface a little bit better. But, you know, so just keep that in mind as you're doing it and using it. So there are a bunch of different ways to accomplish and different looks with the milk dyeing. So let me pull out some of my swatches here. Here's that one. So really you can get all kinds of different effects, and you know what? It's just plain old fun. it's just plain old fun. It's a nice little experiment to try different things out and just be creative and let go and just enjoy yourself. So there you go. I'd love to hear if you end up doing it, how it turns out, or what you think. Go ahead and put a comment below, and thanks for coming along with me with this wonderful, fun experiment. So I will talk with you later. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.